Now, it's good to be critical and to ask, so all this talk about holism and looking to the whole, that's all well and good, but isn't that just speculation? It's not. If again, returning to the text, to Plato's text, he does give us some hints, at least, that are indirect on this. Because what Socrates is talking about very early in the dialogue, and it's not clear how serious he is, but at least it's a motive that he brings in. That's the doctors of Zalmoxis, which is a kind of something like between a medical group and perhaps a priestly group, or it's not quite clear what they are, but they are the doctors of Zalmoxis is a group of Thracian doctors who, in order to cure, will always look to the whole. Now, we know the importance of medicine to Plato, and it's brought up again and again as an analogy to philosophy. It's like a healing, and it's a method, and it's rational, and so on. Many things that they have in common. When it comes to these doctors, what's brought out is that our sort of Hippocratic doctors, they are good at looking at the whole in one way, because, for instance, in order to cure an eye, if you're a good Hippocratic Greek doctor, you will look to the whole body. What's so fantastic about these doctors that makes them even better is that they look to the whole beyond that even, which is then identified as the soul. So they look to the soul in order to address some apparently or seemingly smaller fault, which could be, even physical. So this is a clear sort of thematization of that kind of situation, of the importance of looking to the whole, and that's a good thing. What is also tied up with in this dramatic opening, of course, is that it's part of a program, a cure, that Socrates will help give Charmides. Now, of course, the topic here is sophrosyne, temperance or self-control or that kind of quality of harmony and order, and as will turn out ultimately knowledge. At least that will be raised as a possibility. And so when Charmides enters the picture, he's already been sort of spoken about and bragged about by his older cousin, who is Critias. And so we are already, the claim is that he's got the most sophrosyne of anyone. He's, especially for his age, he's very young, of course. He's just so wise and of course very beautiful, very beautiful. And you can notice when he comes into the palace, there are people that are sort of looking at him as if he's a statue, which he means not that he's standing still, but that he's got this sort of physical perfection. He looks in such a way that no one is able to look anywhere else, and everyone wants to be near him. And the background then for Socrates entering into a way of speaking with him is that he has a problem. Charmides has been having morning headaches lately. And so on a partly jocular, but perhaps not entirely jocular level, what Socrates is going to help him with is a cure for this. And so, of course, you have to investigate the soul in order to cure the body. That's basically the idea. So, again, we see an analogy that's found several times in Plato, and that's quite central. There's the idea of medicine as a cure, and there is a relationship so that what other things may do for the body, we will do for the soul. Most people focus on the body, we will focus on the soul. So there is no denial here of the beauty of Charmides, but there is a focus on his soul, addressing his soul instead of the body, as it were, and investigating and healing or curing that. That's part of the idea and the sort of dramatic setup for the dialogue. But I think we can perhaps speculate a little bit further why has he got morning headaches if he's such a wonderfully temperate young man? Could it be that he perhaps drinks a bit too much? I mean, is there something? It's a possibility, isn't it? Why would a young man have these morning headaches? It could be that there is some hint about an issue with a personality here that's brought in a kind of joking way, not to be taken that seriously, but it's part of the picture. And of course here, the method that Socrates is going to use is this elenchus. That's the sort of therapy, in a way, the method. And this therapy is then talked of as a charm, almost. So it's as if the methodology, although it's about arguments, it goes beyond arguments. It's not only about getting your syllogisms right with the right premises and so on. It's got something to do with a charm, something like almost like magic, in order to heal and make better the individual that you're interacting with. So these are some of the central structures that we are shown in the very first couple of pages of the dialogue. And I thought it would be useful to just point them out now, because they are very handy to keep in mind for the rest of the dialogue. So there's both the idea of what is the method here. There is actually a dialectical method being used. What's the end? It's some kind of healing. What's the background? The background is very problematic, because we know that these people are going to go on into very particular lives. Critias is going to be very problematic both in his politics and not least in the extremism of the means that he goes to that seem not to be very temperate at all. And Socrates, of course, is going to go to his death as part of the background is just interacting with and socializing with these guys in the first place. One final thing that is also important to keep in mind is that Plato keeps us in mind. Of course, he couldn't know about the kind of people, the kind of civilization that we're having now, these days, so he's probably writing primarily for his first and closest audience. But he is writing very consciously for a reader. So what I've said now about what Socrates may be doing vis-a-vis his interlocutors in the dialogue, something like that is probably also what Plato is doing vis-a-vis his readers of the dialogue. So just as Socrates is made to say or to ask certain things, and then perhaps to show that building on these arguments, looking at only this bit, you at least, the interlocutor, are not able to defend your thesis, defend your professed belief. And so this may be a way for Socrates of pushing that person to think further or to see this in light of something else. It's several opportunities or possibilities there. Something like that isn't so unlikely to think that Plato is doing with us as well. So there are many reasons why Plato wrote dialogues. And this is not a lecture on that, so we're not going to go into all of those details, but it's a fact that he did, and it's a fact that he could have chosen other ways of writing. And since Plato is generally, it's reasonable to think of Plato as someone who sort of knows what he's doing, he's typically a man with a plan, then isn't it likely that in writing the way that he does, he manages to make his readers go further than they would otherwise do? This is not the same as entering into a dialogue with a philosopher such as Socrates or Plato-Socrates, but it obviously is something akin to it. So again, in Plato's or the text's relations to us as well, it may be that some of the things that are talked down or seemingly destroyed in the text, we need to look at the whole, both the whole of the text and the whole of the issue that it takes up, in order to think this through one more time. And perhaps we also think that we see that there are possibilities, there are opportunities, argumentative opportunities, that are not picked up properly by the interlocutors of Socrates in the dialogue. That may actually be part of Plato's broad scheme as well, of the way of writing, a way of writing that in a way transcends the narrow idea of a text as just a document that simply hands over knowledge. That this text, whatever it is not primarily that. Plato's text is not primarily that. So if it works, if it's related to philosophy, it has to be in some more advanced and complex way than that. And that's part of the attitude that I would suggest you have when you work your way through the Charmides with these early pointers in the back of your mind.